Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, Austria. His father, Alois Hitler, had changed his name from Schicklgruber. Adolf never used the Schicklgruber surname himself. He spent much of his childhood in Linz, Upper Austria, a city he favored throughout his life. His early years were marked by a distant relationship with his father, who passed away in 1903. Hitler's mother, Clara, was a central figure in his young life, and her death in 1907 from cancer was a significant blow. Academically, Hitler's record was inconsistent, and he did not complete education beyond secondary school. After his mother's passing, he moved to Vienna, aspiring to become a great artist. He applied twice to the Academy of Fine Arts but was rejected both times. Living a solitary existence, he painted postcards and small advertisements to support himself. These years in Vienna were formative, shaping his worldview. He developed a strong dislike for the cosmopolitan nature of the city and its diverse population. These sentiments solidified into a more defined ideology. In 1913, seeking new opportunities, Hitler moved to Munich, Germany. This marked another chapter in his pre-war life. His time in Vienna and Munich would profoundly influence his later actions. The seeds of his future ideology were sown during these early years. Before World War I, Hitler's military prospects seemed dim. In February 1914, he was assessed for Austrian military service and classified as unfit. When war was declared in August 1914, he was residing in Munich and quickly petitioned to enlist. He joined the 16th Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment and was deployed to the Western Front. Serving primarily as a dispatch runner, he experienced the grim realities of trench warfare. The camaraderie and discipline of military life appealed to him greatly. In October 1916, he was wounded in the leg during the Battle of the Somme. Later, in October 1918, he was temporarily blinded by a mustard gas attack. For his bravery, Hitler was awarded the Iron Cross, Second Class, in December 1914, and the Iron Cross, First Class, in August 1918. The war had a profound impact on Hitler, reinforcing his belief in the virtues of conflict and struggle. Germany's defeat in 1918 and the Treaty of Versailles left him embittered. He felt a deep sense of betrayal and humiliation. These feelings heavily influenced his later political ideology and actions. The war transformed Hitler from an aspiring artist into a fervent nationalist. His experiences on the front lines shaped his future ambitions. After being discharged from the hospital, Hitler returned to Munich in 1919. Germany was in turmoil and political uncertainty. He found work with the army as a political agent, investigating various political groups. In September 1919, he attended a meeting of the German Workers' Party and decided to join it. By 1920, he took charge of propaganda for the party, demonstrating a talent for public speaking and organization. The party was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or Nazi Party. Widespread resentment over the Treaty of Versailles fueled its growth. Hitler's influence within the Nazi Party grew rapidly, and by July 1921 he became its undisputed leader. His powerful oratory skills captivated audiences and drew new members. Key figures like Ernst Röhm, Hermann Göring, Rudolf Hess, and Alfred Rosenberg joined the Nazi hierarchy. The economic situation in Germany further aided the Nazi cause. By 1923, runaway inflation had devastated the German economy. The Nazi Party, with its radical solutions, gained more support. The SA grew to around 15,000 men by 1923, often clashing with political opponents. In 1920, the party acquired the newspaper, a vital tool for disseminating Nazi propaganda. Hitler's rise within the party was meteoric. The stage was set for his next bold move. By November 1923, Hitler felt the Nazi Party was strong enough to seize power. On November 8th to 9th, he launched the Munich Beer Hall Putsch with General Erich Ludendorff. Their aim was to overthrow the Bavarian government and trigger a national revolution. The putsch began in the Bürgerbraukeller, a large beer hall, but was poorly planned and ultimately failed. Bavarian state police and army units quickly suppressed the uprising. Several Nazis and police officers were killed, and Hitler was arrested 2 days later. The beer hall putsch was a clear setback for Hitler and the Nazi Party. Hitler was put on trial for high treason in early 1924. He skillfully used the courtroom as a platform for his political views, gaining national publicity. Though found guilty, he received a relatively lenient sentence of 5 years in Landsberg prison, serving only about 9 months. During his time in prison, Hitler began to dictate his political manifesto. The first volume outlined his autobiography and core ideological beliefs, including extreme nationalism and anti-Semitism. He identified Jews and Marxists as Germany's primary enemies. He also articulated the concept of the Führerprinzip, a leader with absolute authority. The failed putsch taught Hitler that power would have to be achieved through ostensibly legal means. He would need to work within the system to destroy it, became the blueprint for his future actions. Hitler's time in prison was a period of reflection and planning. Upon his release from Landsberg prison in December 1924, Hitler faced challenges. The Weimar Republic had achieved a period of relative stability. Hitler was initially banned from public speaking until 1927. The Great Depression in 1929 was a turning point. The New York stock market crash hit Germany hard. Businesses failed, and unemployment soared. Hitler and the Nazi Party exploited the crisis. In 1930, he allied with Alfred Hugenberg. This alliance spread Nazi propaganda nationwide. Financial backing from industrialists began to flow. The Nazi Party's electoral fortunes improved. In 1928, they won 2.6% of the vote. By 1930, their share surged to over 18%. In 1932, Hitler ran against Paul von Hindenburg. By July 1932, the Nazis were the largest party. Hitler now insisted on being appointed chancellor. The Nazi Party's rise to prominence was swift and strategic. The stage was set for Hitler's next move. On January 30, 1933, President Hindenburg appointed Hitler as chancellor. Conservatives believed they could control him. They underestimated his ruthlessness. The Reichstag fire in February was blamed on communists. Hitler used it to consolidate power. An emergency decree suspended civil liberties. Freedoms were curtailed, opposition suppressed. Thousands were arrested. The Enabling Act granted Hitler full powers. He could rule by decree. Democratic institutions were dismantled. Trade unions abolished, parties banned. Opponents were imprisoned or murdered. The Night of the Long Knives purged SA leaders. The army supported this action. Hindenburg died in August 1934. Hitler declared himself Führer und Reichskanzler. The military swore loyalty to him. Hitler's seizure of power was complete. His dictatorship was firmly established. Once in power, Hitler's regime focused on rearmament, rebuilding Germany's military in defiance of the Treaty of Versailles. Conscription was reintroduced, and a new air force, the Luftwaffe, was developed. Large-scale public works programs such as the construction of the Autobahns helped reduce unemployment and restore national pride. Economic prosperity, though partly built on rearmament, returned to Germany. Hitler's worldview was dominated by the concept of, or living space, to be acquired primarily in Eastern Europe. He considered Slavic peoples, or subhumans. Racial supremacy and anti-Semitism were the cornerstones of his ideology. In 1938, Hitler began to implement his expansionist plans. In March, Germany orchestrated the Anschluss, the annexation of Austria. Later that year, he demanded the Sudetenland, a border region with a large ethnic German population. Britain and France, hoping to avoid war, pursued a policy of appeasement. At the Munich Conference in September 1938, they agreed to Hitler's demands. The Munich Agreement, however, did not bring lasting peace. In March 1939, German troops violated the agreement and occupied the remaining Czech lands. This act demonstrated that appeasement had failed. Britain and France realized that Hitler could not be trusted and pledged to support Poland. The stage was set for a wider conflict. Hitler's aggressive foreign policy was clear. The world was on the brink of war. On September 1, 1939, German forces invaded Poland, marking the beginning of World War II. Hitler had signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, secretly dividing Poland between the two powers. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The conflict Hitler had long desired was now a reality. In the early years of the war, Germany achieved stunning military victories using blitzkrieg tactics. By mid-1940, much of Western Europe was under Nazi control. Hitler's foreign policy aimed to establish a new order in Europe based on German dominance and racial hierarchy. Central to Hitler's vision was the Holocaust, the systematic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews. The Nazis considered Jews their primary ideological enemy. As German armies advanced, special units called Einsatzgruppen carried out mass shootings of Jewish civilians. Later, extermination camps like Auschwitz-Birkenau became sites of industrial-scale murder. The Holocaust also targeted millions of others, including Roma, Slavs, political opponents, and homosexuals. In total, Nazi forces were responsible for the deaths of an estimated 11 million non-combatants. Hitler's ideology of racial purity and hatred led to unprecedented human suffering. The war and the Holocaust remain one of history's darkest chapters. Hitler's actions fundamentally shaped the course of the 20th century. The legacy of destruction he left behind is a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. The world would never be the same. Despite initial successes, the tide of World War II turned against Germany. The invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941 was a critical miscalculation. The vastness of Russia and the harsh winter stalled the German advance. The U.S. entry into the war in December 1941 added immense power to the Allies. Major defeats at Stalingrad and in North Africa marked significant turning points. Allied forces began to push German troops back on all fronts. By early 1945, Germany faced imminent defeat. Soviet forces advanced from the east and Allied armies pushed from the west. German cities were devastated by Allied bombing campaigns. Hitler retreated to his underground bunker in Berlin. He remained isolated from the collapsing front lines. In April 1945, Soviet troops fought into Berlin. On April 29, Hitler married Eva Braun in the bunker. On April 30th, with Soviet soldiers nearby, Hitler committed suicide. Eva Braun also took her own life. Their bodies were burned as per Hitler's instructions. Germany surrendered to the Allies on May 7, 1945. Hitler's Third Reich ended in total ruin. The war in Europe was over.